Alright, today we're going to show you how to do a sky blue on a guitar body. This is something that I've been playing around with for a while. It's a white base with a color over it. Really is a different look. So as I've been playing around, I've got a knot in this piece of flame maple. What I'll do is I'll spray some water on it to lift the grain, and then I'll come back with this washable white paint. And you'll see this a lot in the homes of the 80s where they did a lot of whitewashing over wood. So I sprayed water to lift the grain, and then I'll come back and apply the paint. And there's not really a white stain. Found some wiping stain from Mohawk that I just purchased, so this will have to do in the meantime. So just got a paper towel and rubbing it in real thick. Get it in all the pores. This piece of wood wasn't even really sanded down all that well. But just want to see how this sort of turns out. So get the paint on nice and thick. Let it sit. Come back. Wipe it off. Make sure it's clean. And what will happen is that white pigment will sit in the pores of the different figuring and those flame lines, and you'll get a nice look. So then I get some Angelus colors and begin to wipe that color over. So Angelus colors are a little bit heavy at times. Didn't thin these out, I just wanted to see what it would look like with full color. So start with a yellow, and we'll move to the red here. Actually, this is more of a rose color, and you can see it definitely turns pink. And then the brown, and then we'll play with the blue. So then when you look at the comparison pics here, you can see it's definitely a little bit lighter. You can see how that white sits across the grain, brown a little bit lighter, and then blue you could see within the figure lines, a little bit different, not as dark, more white. So then I've got a flame maple tele body here, and we'll go ahead and we'll apply this same paint to this figured tele body. Again, same process. This was sanded down to 400 grit first. And we're going to just take this paint and smooth it in there. So I've got an old sock I'm rubbing this in with. Work it all in. Go back and forth a couple times here. Make sure it really sits in the pores. I spray that water on to really make sure that it lifts the grain. I can get that pigment in there. So we'll let this sit for about 24 hours. Make sure it dries out nicely. Wipe up all the excess. And then here's what it looks like dry. So go back with some 600 sandpaper then and just clean up a little bit of it. Make sure that I don't have too much pigment sitting out there. Just sort of clean it up, any of the fuzz. And I'll come back with some Fibings light blue. I actually didn't have any Angelus, which I prefer. I'm using Fibings light blue leather dye here. Thinned it out a little bit as well, so that way it's about half dye, half alcohol. And we'll just rub this in, let it sit. You can see with the white base, the stain is actually really soaking it in here, which was sort of unusual to me. I hadn't seen it soak in this much when I was applying it on other pieces of wood. So here it's really soaking in. Make sure I get good coverage. You're not getting any streaks here and there. Alrighty, it's just got an interesting tint. Definitely lighter. Great way to sort of pop the figure. More of a pastel look. And then I'll come back with some 600 grit again. And as I sand back, now I've got a really interesting color. Definitely sky blue. And I'll come back then with the white and sort of feather this in. So I've got more of a sort of a cloud look. So we'll do this like I do a burst, but with the white paint and just rub it in on the outside. So we'll go back and forth here. Get it to just sort of fade out. So we'll go back, do one more coat, make sure it looks right. See, I got that teardrop shape, and then just sort of wipe it in, make sure it sits right. So then that's just a paper towel to sort of clean it up and push it out. Again, we'll just hit it real quick with 800 grit this time. Just sort of clean up the edges and the sides. And then I've got an old Lazy Susan here and flop 2 pieces of wood down. And I've got this cheap enamel spray paint from Home Depot. And we're just going to sort of cloud out the outside. I tried spraying this a couple different ways, and the longer I held down the top, the more it spit. So here I'm just going to turn this around and get it to really fade on the outside. It really has that sky blue sort of cloud appearance. And so we'll just run this around a couple times on the Lazy Susan. Get the paint to sit on the outside. And I was unsure of how to finish this. If I went back with an oil and I rubbed that oil in, it would sort of ruin the paint job I just did. So I'm going to let this sit. What you'd want to do is hit this with a sanding sealer coat and then a couple different layers of lacquer, and you get to keep that color and that fading. So different way with some white spray paints, guys. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next vid.